Okay, good evening. So tonight we are just going to have myself. Stephanie Mayne was called away to a birth. So for those of you that do not know, I'm Kellie Greene. I am a birth and postpartum doula currently located in Chicago. I also practice as a prenatal yoga teacher and I'm having some feedback. I'm Kellie Greene. I am a birth and postpartum doula currently located in Chicago. I also practice as a prenatal yoga teacher and okay, we're gonna see how. Yeah.
Sorry.
So I'm not sure. Yeah.
Let's see. Push the microphone a little further away from me. There, that should be better.
Okay, sorry about that. Hopefully that helps. So, I'm Kellie Greene. I'm a birth and postpartum doula in Chicago. I also practice as a prenatal yoga teacher and lactation counselor and help families who are going through the autism journey. So, tonight we are going to discuss dads or partners and doulas and how they can make a really great team. So, I'm excited to share quickly some things that I have geared towards dads and then towards the beginning of the call. And then at the end, I'm going to focus it more towards doulas and how doulas can best support the partner. So I'm going to jump right in. So, how I focused tonight's call, since I didn't have Stephanie to kind of bounce back and forth with, I just went ahead and did 5 reasons that you as a partner should consider hiring a doula. So we'll go right ahead. Number 1, with a doula, you, the partner, will never need to leave your partner alone. You can go and eat and drink and take a break, get some rest, and never have to worry about your partner being left alone. If you don't have a doula, most often if you need to do those things, you'll have to leave the room and your wife or your partner will be left alone. I think that's one of the misconceptions of labor is that your OB or your nurse is going to be in there the whole time. Most of the time, you're in there alone with your partner. So a doula can be kind of that extra set of hands that can provide support so you can have your basic needs met and so you're not feeling burnt out as well. Number 2, a doula can provide unconditional support. So unlike a doctor or a midwife or a nurse, all of those care providers kind of have their own objective. So your OB is going to provide very OB-centric advice. They're going to present the risks for things or the benefits for things through their lens. Same with a midwife or a nurse. They're kind of, any information that they present is going to be through their job lens. So a doula is a nice person to have that unbiased support. So you don't have to worry about a doula having to meet their malpractice insurance rules or meet the OB, head of the hospital rules. The doula is really there to provide you with unbiased support. You are that doula's only client at that time, and the doula is solely responsible to answering to you. So as long as you are happy, the doula is happy. So it's really nice to have that person in the room that can provide that support and not have judgment attached to it. Sometimes an OB or a midwife can present options, but have them very swaying to one direction or another in the way that they would prefer that you choose. A doula can provide just the basic information and say, these are all of your options. This is the information with all of those options, and allow you to sort through them and make the decision that's best for your family. So I hope that makes sense. Yeah. So number 3, having a doula at the birth can provide for your ideal experience. So what does that mean? So maybe you are a dad that is afraid of blood, or the thought of blood makes you really squeamish. How will you provide unconditional and great support for your wife if she needs to get an epidural or is having a C-section? A doula can be somebody that can step in at those moments that you might otherwise faint or otherwise be really uncomfortable. Or a doula can be kind of that like buffer person. So a lot of times I, as the doula, have sat with the mom while she's getting an epidural. So most often the hospital policy is that while an epidural is being placed, only one person can be in there with the mom. Sometimes that's the dad, and if the dad feels comfortable with that, or the partner feels comfortable with that, great. That's where the partner should be. But if the partner is feeling a little squeamish or doesn't do great around needles, or just has been awake for 24 hours and is feeling like, I'm just kind of at my breaking point, I can't take any more, that's a great opportunity for the doula to step in and provide that strong, steady support. I've sat, where the dad would be and can talk the mom through, because most dads, especially first-time dads or first-time partners, if they've never had a baby before, don't know what an epidural entails. And so they don't know the steps. They don't know how to comfort their partner because they're not sure what she's going through. So a doula who's been through an epidural before can talk you through those steps, can let you know what's going to come next, can talk to you about the sensations, help you breathe through your contractions while you're getting your epidural placed, and just be that really kind of constant beacon of support. Another great opportunity for that is a C-section. If you've not been in on a C-section before and you just don't feel comfortable with that, that's an opportunity that your doula can step in and mom doesn't have to feel alone or unsupported. Or if something has gone outside of normal and like baby needs to go to the NICU or needs extra attention and the doula is there, then somebody can still stay with mom while somebody is also staying with the baby. One last one I had in mind, if dads don't feel comfortable actually watching the baby emerge, that's a great time that the doula can say, like, I can see the head, you're doing so great, one more push and the baby will be out. Where the dad could be staying up by her head and talking her through and holding her hand, the doula can kind of be hanging out below and seeing what's going on and providing those updates. So having that doula there is a great opportunity. It really can provide that ideal birth experience. And I think that's something that we focus so much on mom and providing mom with the ideal birth experience that we tend to stray away from what's important to dad and what's going to make dad comfortable and have this be a positive memory for him or her as well. So, yeah, I hope that makes sense. So, number 4, help you focus your attention prenatally. So, this was one that my husband actually helped me come up with. So, there's so much information out there right now, and it used to be like there was one book that you read and that prepared you, and now there's like hundreds and hundreds of books, and there's online resources, and there's classes, and it can be really, really overwhelming, and a lot of partners aren't really sure where to turn. And so doula can really sit down with you, figure out what your needs are first of all. If this is your 3rd or 4th baby, you might not really need much prenatal education. But if this is your first baby and you want to have an unmedicated birth at a hospital, you might need more education prenatally. But a doula can sit down with you and discuss what your wishes are, what your desires are, and talk to both of you and kind of make sure everyone's on the same page, and then kind of make appropriate either referrals or sit down with you and go through the information and discuss prenatally what's important to know and make sure everyone's on the same page. So a doula can really help you sift through and really find the really important stuff. Find that great out of hospital birth class for you that fits what your birth style that you're hoping for, and go from there. So a doula is a really, really great resource for that. So number 5 is allow for you a smooth transition in triage. So this is, I feel like, the number 1 area of difficulty in the labor process, and I feel like it's the number 1 area of surprise when I talk to them postpartum, whether I was serving them as a birth doula or whether I was coming in after their birth experience and talking to them as a postpartum doula. A lot of people do not understand the whole triage process and what that will entail and how intense that coping will be, the coping skills that you will need for that process. So what I'm referring to with the triage is you ideally have been in labor at home, and are coming to the hospital in active labor. And so you are 5 to 7 centimeters dilated. Your contractions are coming 3 to 5 minutes, maybe 2 to 5 minutes apart, and they're pretty intense. And so that's kind of the sweet spot to get to the hospital. But it's very difficult to be in that sweet spot and get through triage comfortably. So this is a great time that doulas and partners can work together. Newman wants to join us again. Come here, buddy. So, yeah. When you get to triage, whether you've pre-registered or taken the tour or whatever your hospital or doctor's office has you go through prenatally, they're going to still have questions for you. And they're going to be sometimes brief. How long have you been in labor? That's it. And sometimes they're very extensive. Like, we'll want to go through your whole pregnancy, talk about, your vaccines and everything prenatally. And that can be really intense when you're having contractions that are, 90 seconds apart. So I have found, as a doula at least, that having the doula focus on the mom and focus on helping her through the coping mechanisms, whatever that is that you have established with her prenatally, and having the partner kind of answer those questions to the best of his or her knowledge, has been the most beneficial, because most of it is, what's your birthday? How much do you weigh? Those simple questions that the partner can easily answer, or, can kind of look through the phone or that kind of thing to get an idea of. And that can take, 5 minutes for the partner to answer, rather than if we have to wait for each contraction for mom to answer, that can take a long time. And it also gets mom really out of the groove when she has to stop focusing on her contractions, stop focusing on her coping mechanisms to answer those questions. So that would be my recommendation, and it makes that triage process so much easier. And it also makes that transition from triage to the birthing room oftentimes more smooth, because mom is able to stay in that labor rhythm, so her labor never really slows down or stops. Where if she's interrupted from that kind of mama cave and mom rhythm that she's in, then I've found her labor tends to slow down and space out, and then interventions get proposed, or that kind of stuff. So that's another call. But so those are my 5 reasons why I think it's important that partners hire a doula and bring them along. I think I feel like oftentimes the fear is that doulas will replace the partner, and that is not the case at all. A doula who is experienced and does her job well will know how to make the partner look like the rock star, and look like the doula was kind of just in the background, and dad was this amazing, rock star that knew exactly what I needed and took care of me the whole time I was in labor. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. I hope you consider hiring a doula. I'm going to post after this on my Facebook a little graphic that compares what doulas and dads do, and it's great. I feel like it really shows all the great things that partners have to offer, and all the great things that doulas have to offer, and how they can complement each other. So, yeah, now we're going to switch over to how doulas can support partners. So, Stephanie and I really feel like one of the important roles of a doula is to support the partner. Oftentimes, especially as newer doulas, you can get a little overzealous and want to kind of take charge and just do everything and be everyone, and not just sit back. And I felt like my first couple births, it was really difficult for me to just sit back and sit on my hands and not be constantly doing. But with time and experience, you learn that it's much more powerful for that family unit, for them to be working together as a team, and that moment will be remembered so much sweeter if they're all working as a team. So yeah. So first thing, I wanted to talk about 3 main things about how doulas can support partners. And then I think it's going to be quick one tonight. So mom, partner, assess mom and partner and prenatally and get an idea of how they work together and kind of what their goals are. Do you have a dad that really wants to sit back and kind of be hands off? Or do you have a dad that really wants to be involved? That's something that you need to do prenatally, ideally, but in labor, that's your primary focus kind of all the time, I feel like. Look at mom, see how she's doing, how is she coping, see how you can look at dad, see how he's coping, and look and see how you can get them to work together. And if you teach dad how to do hip squeezes, teach dad how to, provide some sacral counter pressure, teach dad all those skills that so he can provide them, because there's going to be so much more oxytocin flowing if dad is the one that's rubbing her hips and rubbing her back and talking to her and playing with her hair than if you are. And there's still going to be oxytocin if you're doing those things. If you have it hands off dad, yes, you can step in, but if you have that dad that wants to be involved, that partner that wants to be involved, definitely always be thinking about how you can work the partner into the coping strategy. Think about if mom has an epidural and is pushing, get her seated forward and have her partner come behind and provide some, support for her. On a ball, have mom on a ball and have dad sitting behind her, have mom leaning back into dad. Think all those great coping skills that you learned in your doula training. Always be thinking about how you can incorporate dad into that. So, number 2, become familiar with unconditional support. So this is the number one thing that you need to do as a doula all the time, but especially when you're considering working mom and partner in this topic. Think about your wording. There was a conversation today in one of my doula groups. Think about how you are wording something. Just simply as, oh, are you going to circumcise your baby? No, I wasn't planning to. Oh, good. That's not unconditional support. That's very conditional. That is showing that client, that patient, that if you said, yes, I was planning on circumcising my boy, that you're going to be disappointed in them, or that makes them wonder and fear, oh, I wonder if she's going to agree with this decision the next time. And rather than saying, you don't have to say anything, you don't have to ask that one-sided question that way. Just as simply, have you decided what you would like to do on this topic? Have you considered your choices on this topic? And then just praising whatever decision they make. If they're deciding to formula feed, would you like any more information on that? Or do you feel like you've, made the best decision for your family? There's so much mommy guilt around every topic. And I feel like it starts in these prenatal conversations, it starts in these postpartum conversations, and we think that we're providing unconditional support, and we're not. And I'm personally guilty of this. I was very much in the beginning like, Oh, good, you're not going to get an epidural. Oh, that makes, your labor choices that much easier for a natural birth. Using natural birth as a term. So just really think about your language and think about if that's really providing, that unconditional, unbiased support. And that's really what our job is as a doula. And so anytime you're presenting options to families in the birthing room, prenatally, especially in that labor room where you have the care provider that's kind of automatically presenting information in one way, you need to be that kind of beacon of unbiased support, and that you will be there no matter what they decide, and that you're there to provide whatever information they need, and just leave it at that and support that decision, whether they choose a C-section or they choose an epidural or they choose a vacuum or whatever they choose. They hired you to be their unconditional support person, so be that. And the last one that I want to talk about, it's very, very important, and I didn't feel like I got enough information in my birth doula training, but to be prepared for epidurals, C-sections, and pushing phase. If you have never had a baby, or if you've never had an unmedicated birth, or you've never had a C-section, or you've never had an epidural, how are you going to explain those experiences to your clients? How are you going to prepare your clients for those experiences? So there's YouTube videos, there's lots of medical demonstration videos, there's lots of resources online. You can get medical textbooks, ask people, but be prepared, and be prepared and like the best way to support them, and be prepared to be calm, because excuse me, most of the time, especially for an epidural or a C-section, if those are things that they were not planning, most of the time those moms are going to be anxious, nervous, overwhelmed, worried, all those things, concerned for their baby, concerned for themselves, concerned about the risks with those procedures. They may be feeling disappointed if they had a different birth plan. They may be feeling that you will be disappointed in them, or their partner may be disappointed. So be prepared to process those things, to listen, to actively listen, and to not try to fix them. And just be prepared to just be present. And I think that's the biggest thing, just being prepared to be present, because the epidural and the C-section, you're not really going to be doing very much. You might be talking them through, but most of the time you're just going to be holding her hand, talking to her, or talking to the partner about what's going on. And if it's an emergency situation, talking the partner through what's going on. So it's easy to research those things. I personally felt like I was most unprepared for an epidural because in nursing school, I had attended C-sections. I had felt very familiar, as being the ICAN leader with C-sections. And I didn't have an epidural until I think I'd been practicing for like 8 or 9 years as a doula. I didn't have an epidural. And so my first epidural, I wasn't really prepared. And I just I went along for the ride, and the dad didn't want to be in there. And so I was just kind of thrown right into it. And you just have to be present and be prepared to, like, those contractions when she's going through the epidural will be the most difficult most of the time of all the labor contractions, because she'll have to be curled with her chin to her chest and kind of a little ball, and won't be able to move. And so if you have a mom that has been very active during her labor, has been, bouncing on a ball or walking the hallways, or, very active, it's going to be very difficult for her to sit on the edge of the bed, curled up like a ball, for 2 to 5 contractions. So just be prepared to have every kind of tool at your disposal to talk her through that. That's a great time if you haven't already familiarized yourself with hypnobaby scripts or hypnobirthing scripts. Just kind of having that running kind of through your head as a script to talk through would be a great thing. So I hope this information has been helpful. I'm sure Stephanie and I will do this one again so that we can both be part of it. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email at yourgreenedoula@gmail.com. And Greene has an E on the end. Or check me out on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. I hope you have a great night, and thank you so much for watching. Good night.